Hello, class. So today I would like to present just a little bit of information on the two articles I'm asking you to read about physiology and its ability to help us understand elite athletic success. You've already studied the performance enhancing drug controversies, and certainly there's a lot to be learned by reading how each of these performance enhancing drugs does in fact help the athlete. And so students in fact have chosen to do that to in some of the papers on elite athletic success. But physiologically, I chose to focus on two articles that I find interesting, both of which touch on the issue of altitude. One focuses and is the primary article written on altitude training. The other is an article that looks at it in comparison to other things you can do as an athlete to help improve your times. So the Jukendrup and Martin article is identifying a number of strategies an athlete might be thinking about to help their cycling performance. And of course, this is an endurance event. And so you need to think about endurance events as requiring different kinds of physiological contributions than if it was a sprint or a non-endurance event. Anaerobic and aerobic, certainly students have looked at some of the athletic issues related to those two types of events. In this one, the cycling performance, the authors look at a lot of different things that in the end do affect time trials in cycling. Training, surprise, surprise, has the most substantial possibility of improving your times. And here they identify that increased training or more disciplined training can improve your times by 1 to 10%. And so they then went on to look at other areas. Altitude training, they argued, would improve your time by 23 to 34 seconds. The carbohydrate techniques will improve your times by 32 to 42 seconds. Caffeine, interestingly enough, a certain amount of caffeine is legal for athletes, and it had a 55 to 84 second improvement on time. And so they also looked at how one positions themselves while riding the bike, and it had a huge impact. The way the handlebars are structured, the aerodynamics of the frame, all of these were, they looked at all the studies that had looked at these dimensions and then compare how much using that strategy would improve your time. So I do think it's a really interesting article. For anybody who does endurance events, it can be quite helpful, I think. I then went to assign the Stray-Gunderson article. It is the most important article on altitude training. Originally, we knew that altitude training made a difference and would improve your times. But what they have found out in the more adaptive studies after the initial conclusion that altitude training helps endurance events, they looked at the possibility of living at high altitude but training at low altitude. And they do find that it generally is a better strategy. So they live at high altitude but drive down the hill to train at lower altitude so that they can train harder each day and get those. The quickness especially is important in a lot of endurance events, and that is practiced better at low altitude. And so the one exception here that I actually got to ask some of the people at the Colorado Springs Olympic Training Center this last year was, what about Mexico City, where they had to compete at high altitude? And they said in that instance you would not want to train low, you would want to train high. But virtually all races are held at sea level. So in most cases it's going to be this strategy that works better. Altitude training, a necessity now for endurance events, really. So hopefully you enjoyed both of these two articles on that physiological attribute to help elite athletes.